part of our notes is just one more example of each, okay? So example 3 is showing us that we have, again, a circle intersecting with a line, so we should have 2 answers when we do it, and it's that whole idea of a substitution method, okay? So substitution method says, number 1, solve one variable. I think this one's easy to just add the x over, so just y equals x plus 1. Does everybody agree with that? Just add the x over, put them in front. There's your line. Y equals mx plus b, right? The slope is 1, the y-intercept's 1. Step number 2 says, now that you have y isolated, go ahead and plug them into your first equation. So we'll have x squared plus y squared equals 25. But what can we plug in for y squared? X plus 1. Is that okay? So this is different a little bit because before it was just a fraction, so we just squared our fraction, squared our variable. Here it's a quantity, so what's x plus 1 squared? It's not x squared plus 1, it's x plus 1 times x plus 1. We're going to have to FOIL. So this is x squared plus x plus 1 times x plus 1 equals 25. Let that first x squared hang out as you FOIL and get the rest of the things going on, okay? So x squared will hang out as we do x times x, which is x squared, x times 1, which is a 1x, 1 times x, which is a 1x, and 1 times 1, which is a 1, equals 25. Now that we FOILed it and got rid of parentheses, we can gather like terms. So what's x squared plus x squared? 2x squared. What's 1x plus 1x? 2x plus 1 equals 25. So what has happened? This is why like college algebra is very cumulative. What has happened? A quadratic has came out. So what's the easiest way, if possible, to solve a quadratic? Yeah, so let's get everything to one side and see if we can factor it. Absolutely. So I'm going to subtract the 25 over. So this is 2x squared plus 2x minus 24 equals 0 when I subtract the 25 over. All right, what's the number 1 rule in factoring? Look for a GCF first. What can we pull out of 2x squared, 2x, and a negative 24?
2.
A 2. And that's going to make it easier because there'll be smaller numbers that we'll be dealing with. So factor out a 2, and it'll leave us with x squared plus x minus 12 equals 0. So that 2 in front hangs out as we have a new a value of 1 and a new c value of negative 12. So what are factors of negative 12 that add up to 1? Whenever it's a negative AC, you're thinking of factors that just differ by 1, right? So well, 1 and 2, or 1 and 12, do they differ by 1? No, they differ by 11. 2 and 6, do they differ by 1? No, they differ by 4. 3 and 4, they differ by 1. In order to be a positive x, the bigger guy, 4 needs to be positive, and then the smaller guy, 3 is negative. So this is, just for short case purposes, I'm going to just tell you the answer real quick, guys. This is 2 times x plus 4, x minus 3 equals 0. Once we have it all factored out, do you remember what you do to solve? Yeah, and you set each of the factors to 0. So we'll set 2 equal to 0 and solve, x plus 4 equal to 0 and solve, and x minus 3 equals 0 and solve. Well, can 2 equal 0? No, so that's not really part of our answer. This will be x equals negative 4, and this will be x equals 3. So now we can find our y. One will go with an x value of negative 4, one will go with an x value of 3. So that's just step 3. Find y. How can we do it? Well, we already had them isolated right here, okay? So y is equal to x plus 1, but let's branch off. Let's use the negative 4 first. So y equals negative 4 plus 1. What's negative 4 plus 1? Negative 3. So y equals negative 3. So what's our ordered pair? Well, we put an x value of negative 4 first. So negative 4 is who we put in. What's the y value that came out? Negative 3. And then how do we find our second y? We're going to use the second x value of 3. So y equals 3 plus 1, which is just 4. So what's our ordered pair? A positive 3, a positive 4. Okay? And again, this one's not hard to graph. We can throw x plus 1 in our calculator. I'm going to just do it real quick because I don't trust my algebra. Let's double check. So I'll do y equals, I'm going to clear all this stuff. Okay. So this one, guys, remember all you have to do is you just subtract the x squared over. So we'll have the square root of 25 minus x squared. And then we'll have the negative version of that. And what's nice is on step number 1, we already have the line isolated for y. So we'll just have x plus 1. And again, what you're going to see is a circle form. And where did these 2 points hit? Well, we could use the trace feature, but you can tell right now that would be 3, 4, and that would be negative 4, 3. So we found both of ours. Okay. All right, last one. Last problem, guys. Oh, I feel like we need a drum roll or something. So this one is just another example of two nonlinear, meaning neither one is a line. So we have to use the elimination method. And be careful because notice how they're set up. The x's and y's are flip-flop. So I'm going to actually write them like normal first. So x squared plus y squared equals 16. And then when we put this in order, it's negative 2x squared plus y squared equals 10. Does that look okay when I just switch the orders of the x's and the y's? So we're going to use the elimination method. Do you want to double the first one so the x's cancel out? Or so multiply the first one by a negative so the y's cancel out? Like either or, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. Let's do negatives because then that's just changing signs, all right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take each of these, and let's multiply the first one by negative 1. So it'll be a negative x squared minus y squared equals negative 16. And this will just stay negative 2x squared plus y squared equals 10. And I could have done either or. I could have multiplied the second one by negative. It didn't matter. Okay, so the y squareds will cancel out, but then that will end up with a negative 3x squared. And then just do that in your calculator real quick. Negative 16 plus 10 is just a negative 6. So then that ends up with x squared being 2. And then how do you undo a square? You take the square root. But if you take the square root, what do you have to put in front? Plus or minus. So what does that mean? It means x is the plus or minus root 2. So step number 2, find y. Well, we can use either one. I kind of like, it doesn't really matter actually at all. So we'll use x squared plus y squared equals 16, but we'll branch off. One with a positive root 2x and one with a negative root 2x. And we'll see what happens. Okay? So the first one will just be x squared, but that's root 2 squared plus y squared equals 16. And we talked about this in the last case. What happens when you square a square root?
It becomes, well, it just
undoes each other and just the inside pops out. So that's just 2. And then let's isolate y. So how was the first move we're going to have to make?
subtract 2.
Yep, so y squared equals 14. And then how do you undo squaring? Square rooting, plus or minus. So what does that mean? We can start kind of putting our answers down here, guys. When root 2 was our x, we had a positive root 14. And when root 2 was our x, we had a negative root 14. Oh, you can't, I'm too low. Okay, there you go. So I'm kind of just knowing my answer is going to go there. So when I had root 2 as my x, I had a positive 14 and negative root 14. Well, what's going to happen when I do a negative root 2? The same thing. Because we talked about what happens when you square a negative. It becomes positive. What happens when you square a square root? It just becomes 2. So it's actually just the exact same thing. Okay? Subtract the 2 over and you'll get y squared equals 14. Take the square root and you'll get plus or minus root 14. So what does that mean? It means when you had a negative root 2, it was paired with a positive root 14. And when you had a negative root 2, it was paired with a negative root 14. And again, if we were to graph it, I know you can't see right now, but the first equation, x squared plus y squared equals 16, is a circle with a radius of 4. And the second guy, y squared minus 2x squared minus 10, or equals 10, is that hyperbola again, that weird v. And so where it hits it in 4 spots, and those are the 4 spots. If you wanted to check it with a calculator, I'd throw root 2 in there. We already know that's like 1.41-ish. Throw root 14 in there. It's going to be 3 point something. And then you could check it with your calculator.